Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. And what I want to talk about today actually dovetails off of the conversation that I had with John Houtman the other day. He was gracious enough to appear on the Patreon live stream, and we were talking about a few things. Not really what you'd expect. So if you want to check that video out, go sign up for the Patreon. All those live streams are available for my patrons. So definitely sign up for that if you're interested. We've had some great sit-down interviews so far. It's definitely worth your time. But what I want to talk about is one of the aspects of men's style and care in one's appearance that came up that I think warrants a little bit more diving into. And it's this. There is a degree to which dressing better, again, not dressing up, not suits and ties, not fancy suits or any of this, but dressing better is a form of self-care. And when you think about it, there are very few avenues where we as men are it's socially acceptable for us to treat ourselves to stuff. And typically, it's going to be something that's relatively fleeting. You know, it's going to be like a steak dinner or, a cigar or a bottle of booze, something like that. Maybe a nice watch, provided that you've got the budget. But there's not a lot of indulgences that we're allowed. And there are people that take it to this extreme as though there's some sort of inherent nobility in this archaic Spartan lifestyle with no joy or pleasure. I absolutely agree that dudes should be able to do hard shit. It's the reason that I roll jujitsu. It's the reason why I take ShivWorks classes, stuff like that, because you absolutely should test your mettle. But that's not to say that you need to be living like you're Amish on a daily basis. So what I'm talking about with all of this is there are certain, whether it's just an achievement or whether it is to play into and reinforce a positive self-image, there's nothing wrong with putting a little bit more care into your appearance. Now, we've started to see a little bit more of this come into the mainstream, primarily in men's grooming products, especially as it pertains to beard care. Now, I don't have a particularly impressive or marketable beard, but I guarantee that you've seen on your thread somewhere, some type of beard oil, beard balm, some type of men's grooming products that's geared towards that. The other ones that are a little bit more commonplace are going to be decent quality underwear and other grooming supplies, like Manscaped is a popular one, stuff like that. But it extends to your wardrobe as well. And there's a couple different facets to this. Number one is, again, the fact that there is nothing wrong with liking nice shit. It doesn't mean that you're a snob. It doesn't mean that you're elitist. It just means that you have reached a stage where you have the financial security to afford things that you used to not. I'm not saying be frivolous with your money. I'm not saying, go out and buy a $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 custom suit if, that's going to be a huge expense. But maybe buy a $100 pair of jeans instead of a $50 pair. And it's not just for kind of the luxury experience of it, because while from a material standpoint, especially at certain levels, there are some appreciable differences. The other part is what I've talked about previously, cost per wear. And it's not uncommon for more expensive items to be constructed to a level that they're going to last dramatically longer than the cheaper ones. And you're going to get not only a certain pride of ownership in that, but there is an aesthetic value to it as well. I mean, I've had this leather bag now for easily, probably almost a decade. Yeah, just about. And it's got some scuffs. It's got some wear. Where it's actually being handled, the oils from my hands are causing the leather to patina in a different fashion. And it's not a particularly expensive bag. I think I spent a couple $100s on it. I've actually got it in my Amazon store, so that's linked down below as well if you want to check it out. And there is some value to the character that those items develop over time because it tells a story. Certain stuff should be disposable, undergarments, like for me, anything that directly touches my skin, I view as disposable. That's why I wear undershirts, to protect my nicer clothing. White dress shirts are another one where you're generally better off spending a little bit less and having more of them just because, they tarnish pretty easily. But, again, talking with John, he's not like a suit and tie guy. He's very squarely in the workwear category. But, spending $100 or $200 on a pair of jeans as opposed to the $30 or the $40 Walmart specials, you'd be surprised. Number one, they generally tend to fit better, which means that you feel better wearing them. And while it's going to be a slightly higher upfront expense, the cost per wear is going to be lower. And again, a lot of this, once you wear well-made clothes that fit well, you feel better about yourself. Like you realize that you can look good. And especially if you're like me and you are not, CrossFit level physique, good clothing can help accentuate certain physical attributes, and it can help distract from others, and it can accentuate the V that we're all going for. It can build up the shoulders and the chest a little bit. It can trim down the waist to a degree. And regardless of what your body type is, it can present it in the most flattering manner. So I think that it is something that really should be given a little bit more thought and care because, again, the self-care piece of this is something that tends to get overlooked because, again, it's somehow dismissed as, unmasculine or something to that effect. And I'm not necessarily saying that you have to go, be foppish about it to where, the idea of getting your hands dirty strikes you as somehow obscene and you've got to go everywhere with a perfumed handkerchief to sort of stave off the smell of the peasants. That's not what we're talking about here. But this is just a chambray work style shirt from one of the Italian brands that I'm fond of. And the material is a little denser than some of the department store chambrays that I've gotten. One of the big factors is the shirt placket isn't doing that like bacon ripple thing that some of my cheaper ones do. It fits me a lot better. Armholes, especially high armholes on shirts and jackets, is really important, and you tend not to find that on cheap clothing. So, again, kind of going back to this, it all ties together because I'm going to use something like in my own life here as an example. Earlier this week, I just got my third stripe on my white belt, which, again, yeah, it's an achievement. And I'm not going to diminish it, but I'm also not going to play it up. It's not anything that's earth-shattering or life-changing. I appreciate it for what it is and what it represents. And interestingly enough, one of the things that got me there was after I took last year off of jiu-jitsu to rehab my shoulder, one of the things that I did as both kind of a reward and an incentive when I got back on the mats in January was I went and I bought a second Ghee. And the second Ghee that I bought was from a brand called Origin, which, if you're not familiar, they're a U.S. manufacturer company that does textiles. So they do Ghees, they do other kind of fight wear, as well as some hoodies and some denim and stuff. Their jeans are really nice. I'm actually doing a version 2.0 of my Denim Throwdown, and I've got some stuff to say about the origin denim. But besides the point, it was easily 3 times what I spent on the Sanibel Ghee that I bought off Amazon. But it was there, number one, like I said, partially as an incentive, but also as a reward, because I wanted to start going more regularly than I had been. And my logic was, well, if I got 2 Ghees, then at the very least, even if I just have a total squirrel moment and I forget to wash one, I'm going at least twice a week. And if I stay on my game, I can cycle them through and go 3 to my goal is, probably by June, I'm going to try and get up to 4 times a month. 4 times a week. And so that way I can go 2 days, wash them, and then 2 days. But the fact that I spent that much money on something that I'm using for 2 hours a week, number one, when I put it on, I don't feel like a badass, but I do feel good. Partially it's because I'm very hot-blooded and it's an exceptionally lightweight Ghee, which makes my life more comfortable, which is a perk. But it's also like, hey, I spent the money on this, I want to get the mileage out of it, and it fits well. I don't feel like I'm fighting it as much as some of the other Ghees that I've tried. So it's not saying that you've got to go out and buy something that is obnoxiously expensive, that is sort of traditionally expected of you. If you don't wear suits and ties, it would be ludicrous for you to go out and spend $300 on a handmade, Italian crafted 7-fold silk tie. Now for me, I like having stuff like that in the collection because I appreciate the craftsmanship. I do get the mileage out of it and things like that. But if you're a jeans person, find a good brand that's a little more expensive than you normally pay and try that out. If you're a boot person, same deal. And regardless of what it is, find one of your wardrobe staples and just find the best quality version of it and get that and try it. I'd be very curious to see how that plays out, because everybody that I've talked to who starts down that path, they put that thing on that fits them right, and they just kind of go, all right. They've got a little more swagger in their step. They've got, it improves your self-image. It improves how you feel about yourself. And once you've got that, it changes your demeanor to a point that how you start interacting with the rest of the world changes a little bit. And the last thing that I think is kind of an interesting observation was, once you realize what you can look like, if you are not as fit as you'd like to be, there's a little bit more incentive there, because, I mean, the reality is the more in shape you are, the easier it is for your clothes to look good on you. And so it starts to kind of stack all of these self-improvement motivations. And, once you start getting more in depth with your grooming, you start maybe concerning yourself a bit more with the condition of your skin, and you might start drinking more water, stuff like that. And it all kind of plays in. So don't be scared of it. Dressing well is just another form of self-improvement. And so I'd be interested to hear from y'all. If you were to go out and you were going to treat yourself, if you were going to reward yourself with an article of clothing or like a menswear accessory, what would it be? Not just like what the piece would be, but is there a particular brand that you have in mind? Like, if you hit a weight loss goal, is there like a Seiko dive watch that you've been eyeing or something like that? I want to hear about that down in the comments, because I want to encourage people to start experimenting with this as much as possible. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Again, I've got the Patreon going. Apparently it's shadow banned, so the only way to get to it is through the links and all that jazz. But aside from that, I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Stay dangerous and stay sharp.